Hello friends, welcome back to the Brothers in Dice channel. In the previous video you have seen me painting these tiny minis from Time of Legends Joan of Arc. Well, I have painted enough of them to play a scenario, and I have played a scenario twice, and I'm ready to give you my first impressions. So, what is Time of Legends Joan of Arc? It is a tactical battle game that is played with the 15mm minis on a battlefield constructed from hex tiles like this one. And it explores the historical themes of the 100 Years' War combined with the myths from the same era. So you will not only be able to reconstruct famous battles where the English longbowmen will face the French mounted knights. You will also be able to play a hypothetical battle of Archangel Michael versus the devil in the form of a dragon fighting on the Mont Saint-Michel. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the look and feel of this game that comes from its 15mm scale. This gives you an option to build really epic looking armies. And even if you are commanding very small force, just like 5 bases, on each base you have 2 or 3 soldiers, so the feeling that you get is actually really epic, and I love it. And this also gave the authors an option, especially because they went for this integration of mythical creatures to this game. This gave them an option to allow the players to really appreciate the size of the monsters. So just look at this dragon here compared to the to the bowman. It's really something different. Feeling that you only get in the huge apocalypse games of Warhammer, for example. But this game brings the same feeling with much less complexity on the board, and I love it. The second point that I want to talk about are the miniatures. So, you will get hundreds of these tiny 15mm scale soldiers. The sculpts are beautiful. The detail on the minis is actually quite good, especially considering that these are made from PVC, so you cannot really compare that with the stuff that GW makes or some of the resin minis. But for PVC and 15mm, this is absolutely fantastic, and I think that they are on par, for example, with the Flames of War 15mm games, the small minis. And also what you would consider like these angels, the minis that you would consider to be like regular 28-30mm scale, are still full of details. I have 2 problems with the minis. The first one for these tiny minis is that there are no variations. Even for the second scenario you will need 10 bases of archers. So that means 30 archer minis, and each one of them is the same. There is no variation, which is a shame. The Mythic games have access to some of the best sculptors in the industry, some of the best artists, and they could have made a couple of different poses. For example, for these archers and for some other minis that you will get multiples and multiples of. So that is the first problem with the minis. The second is the problem that I actually have with the bigger minis, and that is the seemingly lack of details on some of them. These were beautifully sculpted, but it looks to me like they were blown up for the production. So these mini looks as if it was sculpted for this size, and then just the size was increased for production. If you look closely at the details on the feathers of the beast, it's about the same as the details of feathers that are sculpted on this angel. So that is again a missed opportunity. The mini still looks great, it is fantastic, but could have been so much better with more detail. The thing that I love is actually this terrain, a beautiful church and some townhouses that you will also get with this game. And these look beautiful. Really, detail sculpts very, very well capture the details. But then again, I do not understand why they dropped the ball on the beast. The genie here actually looks much better. There is a ton of detail on the flying carpet here, even though some have been flattened down. But yeah, overall, the minis are great, but there are things that could have been better. So let's talk about the third point, the gameplay itself. As I said, I have only played a single scenario so far, but I have played it twice against quite good opponent, and I won both times. That was mostly because I did watch some games before, I had better knowledge of the game, and I was lucky. But I did like the game. It is really tactical. It seems to me like there is a really obvious tactics of keeping your units together to make most of your limited activations. I really hope that that the game will not just fall flat to this single tactic. And I have seen some games that Leo and Az have played on the internet, and I know that there is a battle system where you can build your own armies, and there are different missions, and one of the missions was that you need to control territory, which goes against the tactics of keeping your troops together. So you have to make these tactical decisions. Do you want to keep your troops together for maximum impact, or do you want to spread them for maximum score? Looks really interesting, and I'm looking forward to play more games of this. The one problematic issue with this game is the amount of components. And I do not mean the minis. I love the minis. I want all of the minis. But what I mean by that are the different cards. You have like 5 different kinds of these small cards, 3 different kinds of these middle-sized cards, and a couple of types of these bigger cards. Then you have tokens. There is a ton of tokens. And then you have different activations. Again, there is a ton of them. And it just brings the complexity of the setting up the game to some ridiculous levels. And the problem is that the game doesn't come with any kind of good organizer. So after you unpack the cards from the box, you have no way to put them back in any sensible form. Same with the tokens. No organizing boxes for them. So that is another point that I think that Mythic Games could work on a little bit more. Figure out how can you play this game with fewer number of components. So let's now talk about the overall production quality of this game. It is still super high, almost on par with Mythic Games' previous project, the Mythic Battles Pantheon, but there are a few things that some of them I have already mentioned that I think bring this game a little bit lower. The first one, I already mentioned, lack of detail on these huge minis. The second one, there are not enough bases for all of the minis. You can take the minis off the base, but a basic game element is not a mini, it is a base. And if you want to have all the miniatures based and ready for the battle, you need extra bases. And they do sell them. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that I would need extra bases. I only jumped on the campaign after it was over, so I did a late pledge, and that also meant, unfortunately, that I have missed on the super exclusives that the Kickstarter backers got. So I'm now actually thinking about getting another copy of Joan of Arc to get the not only the extra bases, but the super exclusives and the extra dice. That's another thing that you need more of. Extra dice, because even in this small introductory scenario, we ran several times into a problem that we needed more of specific dice. So you have dice of 4 different colors, and you have five of each colored dice, and that sometimes isn't enough, even in this small game. For example, when attacking, each knight has 2 red dice for an attack. That is a problem, and more dice would be useful. And the last thing about the production quality that makes it a little bit lower for me is the lack of art, or at least it seems so, because, for example, you have this same illustration, same figure used for several different heroes. So these are 3 different named characters. Some of them are French actually, and all of them use as illustration the same guy with an English cross on his shield. This guy, where is he? Right here. They have invested so much into this game, and I like the art. It is cool. It fits the theme of the game. It is not as flashy as the art that they made for Mythic Battles Pantheon, but I really hate the repeating art on character cards. It's even worse than repeating poses for each of the archers. Other than that, I love everything about the game. All of the other components are beautiful, very well made. The minis are well sculpted, have great sculpts. They could use some more detail on the bigger minis. I'm really looking forward to play some more games of Joan of Arc. I'm looking forward to paint some of the bigger minis, right? So far, Joan of Arc, very excited. Let me know if you want to see more coverage of this game. Perhaps we can bring some battle reports or more painting tutorial. If you want to check out the previous video about speed painting the minis, I'm linking it right here. And I'm looking forward to see you next time. Bye bye.